safe streets, vibrant neighborhoods, successful business and commerce. These are things that make a healthy community. We are a diverse community, rural, suburban, urban, a multitude of languages and ethnicities, ages and experiences. We are a collaborative community. Public-private partnerships make us a model community that others want to follow. It is what makes us unique. It is what makes us strong. The employees of Kent County reflect our diversity and seek to serve our communities.
People in this county, in this area, we wrap our arms around each other. We come together to collaborate, to solve problems. We're all working for the good of the whole. And I think that's wonderful. And you can see it. You can see it as you drive around Kent County.
Our impact starts the day a baby is born and a birth certificate is issued, to protecting children from deadly diseases through vaccination, to the public safety and justice provided by law enforcement and the courts, to offering veterans services and caring for the elderly. Every day we work to keep our communities robust.
I think if you are somebody who's interested in serving your community, in building a strong knowledge base and a good group of people to work with, then the county is one of your best employment opportunities out there. It's been completely rewarding in every way I could possibly explain for 26 years, and I feel like I grow every single day still today.
Leading these dedicated employees, our 19-member Board of Commissioners and our County Administrator Controller, along with our elected officials and appointed department directors, placing emphasis on civic involvement, quality housing, vibrant neighborhoods, and strong, solid infrastructure to allow businesses to thrive. Professional, dedicated, collaborative, and innovative.
Behind the scenes, collaboration between foundations, charitable organizations, nonprofits, for-profit businesses, public sector demonstrated through the county, the city of Grand Rapids, the townships, all the cities and the villages in our area. If we don't come together, then we will not have the strength that we have today, and I only hope to build upon that.
Our aim is to make our communities the best they can be. We are involved in exciting development projects, sustainable recycling programs, and creative progressive prevention programming. We partner with elected officials, impacting policy ideas that become great achievements. We seek opportunities to reach out into the community and offer our services to help our residents make Kent County thrive.
Our relationship is solid, both from a staff standpoint at the county level as well as the Board of Commissioners. And they understand what we do and the benefits that we can do for the community, and vice versa. We couldn't do what we do without the help of Kent County.
While most of us are busy running our lives, Kent County's elected officials, administrator controller, and over 1,600 employees are serving the communities where we live our lives, so we can all have a place we are proud to call home. Kent County, its life well run.
Okay, are we ready then?
Yeah, didn't ask.
Oh, man. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Kent County Board of Commissioners meeting. Today's date is Thursday, March 9th, 2017. Time is 8:30. We'll begin today's meeting with roll call.
Good morning. Commissioners Antor.
Here.
Vice Chair Bolter.
Here.
Breevy.
Here.
Bulkowski. Hennessy. Jones.
Here.
Coleman.
Here.
Mast.
Here.
Korndike.
Present.
Melton. Morgan.
Here.
Ponstein.
Here.
Skaggs.
Here.
Steck.
Here.
Talon.
Here.
Vonk.
Here.
Voorhees.
Present.
Womack.
Here.
Chair Salfeld.
Here. We'll move next to our agenda items 3 and 4, which are invocation and pledge of allegiance, and I'll call on Commissioner Bulkowski.
Thank you, Chair Salfeld. I had invited Senior Monk Hung Soo from the Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple to be here today, and we had it all confirmed place and time. So hopefully he's not in the tall building next door on the 3rd floor looking for us. No, but anyways, that being said, because our community continues to grow in an interfaith manner, I mean, we have now a Sikh temple and a Hindu temple and the Grand Rapids Buddhist temple, is more of folks from a Western tradition, and there is a Buddhist temple as well out in Belmont. So I'm just going to ask us for a moment to, a moment of mindfulness. I can't speak for the senior monk, so I'm not going to try. My Buddhism is very rusty, and we'll leave it at that. So just a moment. And then we say together the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Bulkowski. We move to agenda item number 5, which is a special order of business. We actually have 2 presentations today. The first will be by the Kent Conservation District. Jerry Miller and Jesse Schultz are here to present. Good morning. Jerry was very helpful back when we did the agribusiness study report. Good to see you again.
Good morning and thank you. And as indicated, I'm Jerry Miller. I'm a resident of Cascade Township and one of the 5 board members for the Kent Conservation District. I'm going to take just a few minutes to give you an update. You have in front of you our annual report. For those of you that didn't get a copy in our audience, it is posted on our web at kentconservation.org. As indicated, our mission is to protect and enhance the natural resources of Kent County. So we're all about soil, water, and plants. And as you may know, this is appropriate. We're here today because this March is both in Michigan and nationally Food and Agriculture Month. So we're pleased to be here. What I want to do, I'm going to just go make a few comments about the annual report, and then I'll introduce Jessie Schulte, our district manager, and she's going to talk more about invasive plants, and she has a presentation for you. But let's take just a couple minutes and review the annual report. We work very closely with USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. They bring the Farm Bill dollars to Kent County, and we help to implement and work with farmers to implement those practices that are funded through the Farm Bill program. You'll see a little summary there on the first page. In FY16, they brought in $814,000 plus. So if you're a user of the Rule of 7 for economic impact, that would be an impact of about $5.7 million that those Farm Bill funds came to farmers in Kent County through those programs. We had a major program in the Farm Bill is the environmental EQIP, Environmental Improvement Program. And the EQIP program, we had 12 applications last year, and all of the 12 were approved. We had 7 that went in just this past month, so we're waiting to see if those are approved. To help implement those Farm Bill programs, we have 2 employees that are funded through grant money through the Michigan Department of Ag, and one of those is an engineer and the other one is a soil conservationist, and they work very closely with our USDA partner to implement those programs. On the right side, we again have our native plant sales. It's one of our fundraisers. We have our tree seedling sale on April the 19th and our grass and forb sale on May the 13th. I did bring a brochure. Again, the catalog, if you're interested, is on the web, and there are copies of the catalog and order form back on the table if you're interested in that. We share a forester with Montcalm County, and you can see the summary of his work, and he works very closely with farmers here in Kent County. And the last item on that first page is invasive species, and Jesse will cover that topic. If you turn over to the back of the annual report, I'll just make a couple comments. One, on the left side, you see a program or project we had funded, a one-year project from Again, it was USDA money that went to the National Association of Conservation Districts. We were one of 42 counties in the nation to receive an urban ag grant, and we're working with Urban Roots, which is located on Madison, in Madison Square. It's an underserved community, and we're working very closely with them. They have an acre and a half where they're producing fresh food for the residents of that community. We are involved, we have a technician with the Michigan Agriculture Environmental Assurance Program, and over the last 4 years, we now have 45 farmers in the county that have some part of the meat program. They are meat verified. So we have a new coordinator, a woman that came on in January, and she had experience in a previous county, so we have great expectations for her work. The last item there on the back page on the right side is Watershed Partners. We had a project that we led for the Flat River with the other 2 counties. That was an assessment for issues in the Flat River. It's funded by US EPA $319, and we've completed that report, that assessment report. It has been approved, and it's posted on the website if you're interested in looking at all 315 pages, so good reading. And then the other comment I want to make is that we're partnering with Wendy Olvey at the Grand Valley Metro Council, and you may have read that they were successful in getting a $8 million grant for restoration on the Lower Grand, and we are one of the 22 partners in that, and we'll be working specifically with farmers in the Rogue River and Indian Mill Creek to implement that project. It was approved in December. The sign-offs and final actions will occur this summer, so we'll really start this in late summer, early fall in those 2 watersheds. There's our budget, and I just indicate that, as you know, we receive no state or federal or county appropriated funds. We're pretty much on grants as for our employees that we have. Back to the front page, I'm really pleased to share on the right side of the front page, as of last night at our board meeting, we now have 5 board members. We had 2 vacancies for over a year. We now have 5 board members. We have a board member from an apple grower up on the ridge, and then we have a dairy farmer from the southeast part of the county on our board. So with that, I'd like to introduce Jessie Schulte. Jessie came on as our district manager in October, and she had a previous experience with Blandford. She has an extensive background in plants and invasive species, and she's leading our effort with that work. So Jessie.
Good morning, Jessie.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having us today. So you can hear that the Kent Conservation District is doing a lot of different work throughout Kent County. And today I specifically wanted to share with you about our invasive species program. I'd like to convince you with the slides that I have today that invasive species are really a biological pollutant. If we saw on the side of the road a bunch of tires, we'd want to pick them up and recycle them. With invasives, these are going to grow, adapt, proliferate, and spread. So they're causing increasing economic and environmental damage. Once these invaders are out, they're multiplying, as many of you guys might know. If we can get these invasive plants in our Kent County under control during the early introductory period, when we're detecting them early on, we're going to really reduce the cost. So why should you care about these invasive plants? Maybe you've heard about some of them, Asian carp and quagga mussels. For Kent County, it actually costs St. Clair County Road Commission over $80,000 a year to control invasive reed canary, or Phragmites. And over in Oakland County, they're actually working with the local townships for a campaign against invasive species, and that was a $75,000 campaign. The roads in our counties function as prime habitats and corridors for invasive plant species and can contribute significantly to the spread and establishment of these weeds. So I was fortunate enough to speak with the Kent County Road Commission. So I was able to speak with them Monday and Tuesday morning, and I'll be going back next Monday morning. I'm hitting all of the garages and talking to the staff there about how they can help us detect these invasive plants. That way we can get them early on and control them before they spread into our natural areas. So I'm going to share with you 6 invasive plants that we're working hard to control here in Kent County. And one of them is Phragmites. This is a major problem over in Oakland County, St. Clair. If you've gone over into Ontario in Canada, when you're driving along the side of the road, you'll see this giant reed grass. It grows up about 15 feet tall, these dense monocultures, and it's impacting wildlife's food, habitat, shelter, water. When waterfowl enter these systems, they're not able to feed or reproduce. So the invasive species that I'm sharing with you today are not just our common dandelion weeds. These are plants that have a significant economic impact. We've known about them from states in the south, so in Ohio and Indiana, they'll warn us about some of these plants, or out on the East Coast. And so the ones that I'm going to be focusing on are also very difficult to control. The Kent Conservation District has our herbicide license and insurance, and I've got 16 years of experience with invasives, and these are our monsters out there. One of the plants that we're working to do early detection on is our Asian longhorn beetle. So we have a district forester that does educational programs and helps landowners, and we're on the lookout for the Asian longhorn beetle. This beetle can actually attack our maple trees, so just like the emerald ash borer took out our ash trees, we're concerned about this Asian longhorn beetle. So through our educational programs, we can ask people to keep an eye out for this invasive insect that's coming our way. Many of you guys might have heard of garlic mustard. This is something that a lot of our students are trained to identify and help pull. This plant will take over the understory of our forests. So how many of you guys have heard of garlic mustard? Do you know this invasive? We always call this kind of our gateway invasive plant. Once folks learn to identify this, they'll kind of understand the importance of some of the other plants. I am really passionate about common buckthorn. This invasive is from Europe and North Africa, and the berries of this plant have been shown in the Journal of Herpetology to actually cause the frog embryos to be deformed. So when these invasives aren't just forming monocultures like Phragmites, they're dropping their leaves and seeds and berries into the water column and actually changing the chemistry of the soil and impacting our reptiles and amphibians, so impacting biological diversity. So I was fortunate enough to have a group of volunteers that went out to the Rogue River Park in Kent County Parks and helped cut and remove over 6 acres Saturday, February 25th. So not only is this buckthorn bad for folks that care about, protecting our ecological diversity, which is our Michigan heritage, the buckthorn actually is a host to rust fungus and crop aphids with a D, and has been linked to over a 30% reduction in soybean crops. So when these invasives are growing on the hedgerows, they're actually going to impact the production and the yield. Knotweed. This is invasive that I asked for the Road Commission staff to keep an eye out for us. This invader grows this tall in one growing season. Here's some pictures of our interns surveying in downtown Grand Rapids. This plant actually cracks the foundation of buildings, so it grows on volcanic rock in its native habitat, so it's very powerful. And in the UK, they're spending millions of dollars. Actually, on one of the Olympic sites that they had to prep, they spent $130 million to control this invader. So it's a major problem. Another campaign that we're working on is black swallowwort. This invasive is a milkweed, and it has milkweed pods, but it's a vine. So it's this beautiful green plant, also called dog strangler vines. You can see how it wraps around branches and stems. And unfortunately, this plant over in Oakland County, they also warned us about this plant. It's forming monocultures on the understory of our forest. So we have these beautiful lands set aside that we've protected through the West Michigan Land Conservancy, through the Kent County Parks. And if these invaders get into our forest floors, they're basically turning these into reduced habitat. So we actually had the Oakland County Parks folks come over and talk to us about this plant and some of the techniques that they use to control it. And we're doing a campaign to educate people about inspecting so that this plant does not grow in our forests. There's just a multitude of invasives that we're looking out for. One of them is Oriental bittersweet. What we don't want is swallowwort to get to the level of Oriental bittersweet. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with this one. This is one that people will actually decorate. You make wreaths out of it during the holiday season. A lot of the ornamental horticultural growers will propagate this plant. And then what ends up happening is it just forms these monocultures. It's basically the kudzu of the north. And we don't want black swallowwort to turn into the level that this is impacting us. We're also watching out for invaders in our waterways. You might have heard of the frogbit that was over in East Grand Rapids. These invasives can take over our lakes and rivers very quickly. I worked in Florida for 6 years doing invasive species control, and some of these same plants that are found there in the south are also coming here, and we're concerned about this. The great news, now that I've scared you with all these invasives that are coming our way, the great news is that we are part of the West Michigan Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area, and we're really proud of the work that this SISMA is doing. So I've been active with the SISMA for the last 5 years. We're now happy to report, I believe, over 55 partners, so this is in old numbers. Well, we've surveyed thousands of acres collectively. So our SISMA was able to hike all the trails in the Kent County Parks last year to inspect for these early detection invaders that we're concerned about. But we're also hosting outreach events, and we've reached millions of people through our radio and television broadcasts. Kent Conservation District has a special role to play with our SISMA, with our partners in our region. We're providing technical assistance to landowners, so we get calls all the time for those people that are curious, do they have these invaders in their home, in their yard? We're hosting workshops. We're going to be hosting an herbicide invasive species program coming up. We're prioritizing populations, and that's important because you can see it can quickly become overwhelmed with the number of invasives that are out there. So we're actually focusing on which invasives we think will have the biggest impact and where. And we're also implementing these controls by documenting our successes and failures. So here's an example of us out in the field controlling invasives. We've got a control of black swallowwort over in Kenneshay Park, hosting invasive species educational programs with our partners, the Rogue River Watershed. So we're proud of the work we're doing to protect what we love, and we hope you got just a little snapshot of some of the work that we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a bit unsettling, all the stuff. Almost feel afraid to go out into nature, but no, thank you for the great work that you are doing. We have time for a couple questions. Commissioner Ponstein.
Great, I got 2 questions. I should take up all the time. Jesse, the first question is for you. When we speak of invasive species as in plants, the thing that I've always wondered about, they came from somewhere. I mean, are all the harmful things that happen to us, what is it like where they're the native species, and how is that different? And I know that's a loaded question.
No, that's always a great question. I get that from my family. Why can't you just let them naturalize and they'll find, predators in the wild? These invasives, there's thousands of non-natives that enter the U.S., and about 10% of them become invasive, and about 1% of them become these super weeds. So a lot of these invasive plants don't, where they evolved in their country of origin, they have predators, insects, viruses, bacteria that keep them in check. So here in Michigan, they might only have 4 generalist insects that will feed on them, whereas a lot of our natives, like the oak trees, have over 500 different caterpillar species that will feed on them. So it's just a matter of what's kind of keeping them in check, and you can see something like the knotweed. It evolved on volcanic rock, and when it comes here, it actually has no predators whatsoever. So biocontrols are a really important tool. They're working to investigate biocontrols. When I worked out in North Dakota, we were releasing flea beetles for the cattle farmers so that they can control leafy spurge. So all of our range area was being taken over by leafy spurge, and biocontrols are an option for the future.
Okay. Then my other question, I think, is for Jerry. You had mentioned your efforts in the restoration of the Grand River. A couple weeks ago, I had an opportunity to listen to the political director of Ducks Unlimited speak, and he notified me that 87% of their money raised goes to restoration projects. And he highlighted, too, that they've spent millions on in Florida and Louisiana. Have we ever reached out to that organization? Because he told me that there is no state that they won't go into if it's a restoration of habitat and waterways. Is that a partner that we can maybe reach out to?
It's my understanding, I think I'm correct, that they are one of those 22 partners in this project.
Okay.
I know that Trout Unlimited is, and I'm almost certain that Ducks Unlimited is also one of the partners. Don't take that as saying I said so. But
No, that's fine, and I'll look more into it. But his point too is that the number 2 state for membership for Ducks Unlimited is Michigan.
Right.
So it's on their radar, and they're always looking for projects to do. So I just thought I'd
And I can
pass
check
that
with
along.
Wendy, and I can send you a follow-up note to confirm
And
that.
I've got his name if you want to send it right to him too.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Stack?
Thank you, Chair. So I live on 8 acres, and I thought I had a beautiful backyard. Now I see it's all invasive.
So green, so green.
Should we, as I see these, should I be go ahead and grab the Roundup and start spraying, or what do you suggest?
So that's where Kent Conservation District comes into play. We actually have a strike team, so you can call us. You can go on our website.
The strike team?
Yep. So our strike team, we have insurance, and we have years of experience, and we have our herbicide license, and so we actually go out to consult with landowners. So part of Kent Conservation District is doing technical assistance. So if we get a call and someone's concerned about it, we're working with a landowner, John Lemonis, in Cascade for his Oriental Bittersweet, and he's already gotten a local church that's has large property, and we went there and we're signing a contract so that we can actually treat those invasives and develop a management plan for their property.
So would you urge us as property owners not to self-help and start spraying and pulling? And
What might be great is for them to attend our herbicide and invasive species training. And then that kind of goes through the steps of what they should and should not do. That way they're following the label. The label is the law, and we can offer assistance by, recommending what they can do. We also offer, on-the-ground training programs, too, where we show them what they can and cannot use.
just one quick follow-up. Historically, the 2 invasives that I used to hear the most about was milfoil and purple loosestrife. Are those not issues in Kent, or we manage them, or are they just so known to be issues we don't even talk about them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So fortunately, with purple loosestrife, there was a biocontrol beetle that was released, and that seems to be doing its job, especially over in Ontario with just the hundreds of acres of wetlands. It flares back up, so we'll see patches of it. So we still are doing treatments on it, but it's not as bad as what it was back in the day, especially because we also stopped selling it as well. So now landscapers and homeowners are aware of it, so they're going to take action. So it's kind of a combination of the biocontrol and education, and then our state government saying it's illegal to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Antor.
Thank you. For fear of not turning this into the fruit basket Flowerland show here, I kind of have a question along those lines. Is olive or autumn olive, is that considered an invasive species? Is that something that was already here? And I'm seeing that stuff just going crazy, and I see it didn't come up on your list, but is that something that you would go out and manage it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Invasive autumn olive, unfortunately, is one that years ago was actually sold. We promoted it, and then we realized we need to stick with native. So our tree sale we're very proud of is completely Michigan native plants. But back in the day, folks were selling that plant, and it is taking over a lot of natural areas. We actually have a landowner that contracted us out to do autumn olive treatments. So we were able to come to the property and do basil bark treatments with oil and get that under control. And we encourage homeowners also to remove it. It sends out chemicals into the ground. It's allelopathic, like a lot of these. It sends out excessive nitrogen, and that impacts a lot of the native plants. I've seen studies with autumn olive next to oak trees, and the shape and size of the leaves of the oak trees are impacted. So that would be a great one to work on controlling.
That's not on your hit list, but it's something that you would help.
That one's out of the box. So a lot of these early detection ones, again, it's prioritizing what we think is important. But in some of these natural areas and parks, if there's only a few of them, then we'll go in and say, okay, this section of the park is a priority. You always start with the highest quality area and then push those invasives back. So if it was a high-quality park and that was there, that would be one of the first things you'd want to remove. But so glad you know about that one.
Okay, two more questions. Commissioner Jones?
Thank you, Chair. Just to digress for a moment from invasive species, another area that's important and near and dear to my heart are diseases, particularly ones that affect trees. I personally had a great big attack of needle cast on my blue spruces, which was pricey and took down 3 beautiful blue spruces. And I'm watching in my area in Cannon Township in Lake Bella Vista, people don't know it, but I know it now when I drive by it, or if you're on the expressway and you see it, pine trees without needles are sick. Okay, they're not healthy trees. They have a disease. Do you touch those things at all, or is that an area that you leave to the private sector? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, we do a little bit of that. Oak wilt is a concern of ours. So we just had the other day a neighbor next to the zoo, John Ball Zoo, was concerned about oak wilt. So we went out with our district forester. So we actually share a district forester with the nearby counties. He's fantastic, Nick Sanchez. It would be great if he could come and speak to you about our concerns. We're worried about hemlock woolly adelgid. So our cooperative invasive species management area is actually applying for a grant, and we're going to be doing treatments to control hemlock woolly adelgid, try to get it early on. And it's also an education campaign. If we can plant a diversity of native plants, they're going to be more resilient to these insect infestations, especially if they are native. Another example I'm thinking about is, I think I mentioned the hemlock woolly adelgid and the oak wilt. Those are the 2 ones that we're concerned about. So,
okay, thank you.
I might just add a comment. I mentioned that we share a forester with Moncom, and he would be very interested to come and make a presentation about his work, not only about tree species, but also about diseases and so forth. If that would be something of interest in the future, we can arrange to have him come and make a presentation as well.
Great, thanks.
We have time for one more question. Commissioner Talon.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of years ago, I was privileged to be able to work on the planning for the Grand River restoration downtown. And one of the things we focused on was upriver, so that, you know, we do all this work downtown and we've got to shut it down for days after rain. Really excited to hear about the $8 million grant, but I've not been able to find information about how that upriver portion is going to be spent. Can you suggest a place that citizens could go to learn more about that? About where that, my understanding is about $4 million of it will be upriver water in the watershed?
It's about a little over $2 million, and most of that is funded through the Farm Bill funds, and as we'll be working in Indian Mill Creek and in the Rogue River for that portion of the upstream. We have the plan. The plan, even though it's been approved, it has not been finalized, so it hasn't been posted publicly yet on the web.
So we're a little early yet.
Yeah, but I can have Wendy share with you some of those details, or we can share more details if you're
Do I need
interested.
the best source for that?
Sir,
Wendy's the best source, probably?
Yeah,
Or-
she's probably the
Okay.
best source.
All right.
Yeah, but I'll see her later today, and I can mention that to her.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you, Jerry and Jesse, very informative. Appreciate the time and the answers you provided for our questions. If any commissioners have any other questions, I would note that you have emails and phone numbers on the side of your annual report, so feel free to give Jerry or Jesse a call with your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll move to our next special order of business, which is regarding the broadband initiative, and we'll welcome Rick Chaplin and Dan Manning from Right Place.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you very much. To be considered a world-class center of commerce and trade, we need 21st century infrastructure. One of the areas that we're going to address today is about broadband. It's an important and an essential piece of infrastructure for our productivity and competitiveness of not only our businesses, but our governments and the inhabitants of this county. We're going to give you some insight into what we've been doing and hopefully lead you into some thoughts about what else we need to do in the future. I'm pleased to introduce Dan Manning from Connect, Michigan, who's become a very significant partner, not only in the effort to prepare a report for and about broadband services in Kent County, but frankly in a 13-county region, our Region 4. The real expert of the content is Connect, Michigan, and Dan Manning, and he'll give an overview in citing the work that's been done during the last year and a half. So, Dan.
Thank you. Thanks, Rick. Thanks to all of you, and thanks for having us here today so we can share a little bit about some of the information we've been pulling together and working on over the past year. Actually, it was about a year ago from tomorrow that I was last in front of this group and gave me a chance to tell you a little bit about this partnership that we formed between Connect Michigan, the county, the Right Place, and the West Michigan Prosperity Alliance. All three of us, or 3 or 4 organizations, have been working together and over the past year on this Connected program, which is something that Connect Michigan has developed and has been using across the state. Connect Michigan, just to refresh your memory, we're a nonprofit organization. We do have a parent company called Connected Nation, and our joint missions are really to help expand the use and access and adoption of broadband or high-speed internet across the state and across the country, for that matter. We do have an affiliation with the Michigan Public Service Commission. They provide some of the funding that we get to continue our work. But we've been around for about the last 6 or 7 years, and currently are working with about 50 different counties across the state of Michigan. So we've been pretty active in these kind of efforts here. And again, we've been working with Kent County for the past year or so. The Connected program that I mentioned is really a community-based effort to really take a look at broadband and understand some of the issues related to how broadband exists today within the county and some of the things that we might be working on to make it even better going forward. Really for the benefit of both residents and local businesses, so that's really our focus. We're currently active, as Rick mentioned too, across the West Michigan region. Currently working with 12 out of the 13 counties. We've got a meeting next week to start with the 13th county and hopefully get that one kicked off as well. So there's a lot of interest and support coming from the region to help replicate this program across all the counties. It's really a pretty simple process that we've gone through over the last year. Really involved forming a team of key stakeholders from across the county. We looked at local government organizations. We had libraries involved, public safety organizations. A lot of your broadband providers were part of that team that we had formed as well. Lots of different organizations that form the team and really share the voices that they have about the broadband issues that they're facing today. One of the first things that we did out of the chute, and the majority of the work that we were really focused on in the last year, excuse me, was really to do this broadband assessment, just to go out and understand what the current layout of broadband is, what the environment looks like across the county today in terms of what your infrastructure is, what kind of resources that you have to help people get on board and start using broadband, understand the skills that they need to have, get the education that they need, and then finally also take a look at how broadband is actually being used across the county. What kind of key websites have you developed? What kind of services are you making available online that people can take advantage of, and that ought to be publicly communicated as well. So most of the effort that we've spent over the past year has really been gathering that data. I'll share a little bit of it with you today. I believe you've all received a copy of our formal report that came out of this work. That's got a lot of information in there about a lot of our findings and so on. I'd encourage you to take a look at that when you get a chance if you haven't already. And then coming out of the assessment, we did a number of things to understand where the key focus items ought to be and things that need to be improved or further developed. Put together a set of recommendations and action plans to go forward to work at both the county and more of a local municipality level in order to help with that. And the whole idea was to kind of keep this team and this process in place so that we've always got a central place to go for broadband-related issues where we can listen to the issues that are come up that might be new and also take some actions to help make improvements going forward. This next chart is a little bit busy here. It's really got two major pieces to it, but these are just some of the key findings that came out of the work that we did. If you look on the left-hand side of the chart there, you'll see a map, which is a little hard to read, but it's basically a broadband coverage map for Kent County. And wherever you see the pink shaded areas there are where there's very high speed or cable or fiber service that's available to your residents and businesses there. So you can see from the map just at a high level that there's very good coverage in terms of having that kind of speed and availability to high-speed internet there. Some of the other areas in green or blue are where you may not be able to get the speed that you'd like to have in the more urban areas. Those typically turn out to be a little bit more rural townships and so on. And we'll talk a little bit more about those as well. But overall, this is just kind of a picture of the infrastructure, if you will, from all the different providers that support Kent County. And I believe there's about 22, 23 major providers that support Kent County today. On the right-hand side of the chart are some of the key findings that came out of the work that we did. A lot of the data that we gathered came through us through a number of different surveys that we sent out. We did a number of residential surveys that went out to lots of residents across the county and through the township. We also had specific surveys in place for local governments, for businesses, for libraries, and other sector-aligned organizations as well to gather this data. But one of the key findings out of that was about 96% of the households within the county have got access to at least 25 megabits per second speed internet. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually subscribing to that service today, but it's available to them if they wanted it, which is a very high penetration, which really speaks to the infrastructure that supports the county. However, there still are a number of places across the county that have got some soft spots, if you will, where either people can get access or can't get the speed that they need. And again, typically that turns out to be the more rural townships where it's a little bit harder for the providers to come in and cost justify expanding their networks into those areas. And you can see the list of townships that we've identified there that we're recommending some additional work. And actually, we've already engaged with a couple of those townships to see what we can do to help there. There was also, at the same time, there were about 45,000 households across the county that currently don't subscribe to broadband service of any kind for whatever reason. Sometimes that issue is one of cost, sometimes it's education, sometimes they don't have a computer in the house so they can't get access. There's a number of different roadblocks that get in the way, and that's part of our process too, is to take a look at what those issues are and see what we can do to help knock down some of those barriers and make it better. And then finally, about 22% of the adults that currently are not subscribing to a service at home are using the libraries in order to get their access. So that really speaks to how valuable and important the libraries are in connectivity, communications, and the role that they're playing to help support the county. Okay, so that's just a kind of a small snapshot of some of the findings that we had. As I mentioned, there's a lot more detail on additional findings, a lot of recommendations and specific actions that are contained within the the final report that was sent out as well. And as part of this process, at the same time, we also have a way of recognizing communities that have done a great job in providing the kind of infrastructure needed to support your residents and your businesses and your residents, doing the right things with the right resources, having education available so people can get familiar with how to use computers, how to get online, and then finally, actually, how you're using broadband today and what kind of services you're making available to your various businesses and organizations. So that's kind of the program today. I've got one other order of business that I'd like to go through, but before that, I'd certainly open it up to any questions.